Gopi Chanapalapa Giri Balapadi Yasharanandana Radhujana Vanchana Shamanatira Padachari Jaya Radha Madhavam Kunjapi Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paraman Saparipajakacharya Stita Sarashi Shimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 29, Verse 37. Rūpa-bhedāspadam divyam kāla abhidhīyate bhūtānāṁ mahad-ādīnāṁ yato bhinna-dṛśāṁ bhayam Chant. Rūpa-bhedāspadam divyam. Kāla abhidhīyate. Bhūtānāṁ mahad-ādīnāṁ. Yato bhinna-dṛśāṁ bhayam. Rūpa-bhedāspadam divyam. abhidhīyate. Mahat-ādīnām. Yato bhinna-dṛśāṁ bhayam. Rūpa-bhedāspadam divyam. Kālaḥ abhidhīyate. Bhūtānāṁ mahad-ādīnāṁ. Yato bhinna-dṛśāṁ bhayam. Ladies. Rūpa-bhedāspadam divyam. Kāla abhidhīyate. Bhūtānāṁ mahad-ādīnāṁ. Yato bhinna-dṛśāṁ bhayam. Rūpa-bheda of the transformation of forms. Āspadam, the cause. Divyam, divine. Kālaḥ, time. Iti, thus. Abhidhīyate is known. Bhūtānāṁ, of living entities. Mahad-ādīnāṁ, beginning with Lord Brahmā. Yataḥ, because of which. Bhinna-dṛśāṁ, a separate vision. Bhayam, fear. Translation. The time factor who causes the transformation of the various material manifestations is another feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who does not know that time is the same Supreme Personality is afraid of the time factor. Purport. Everyone is afraid of the activities of time, but a devotee who knows the time factor is another representation or manifestation of the Supreme Personality of God has nothing to fear from the influence of time. The phrase rūpa-bhedāspadam is very significant. By the influence of time, so many forms are changing. For example, when a child is born, his form is small. But in the course of time, that form changes into a larger form, the body of a boy. And then the body of a young man. Similarly, everything is changed and transformed by the time factor, or by the indirect control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Usually, we do not see any difference between the body of a child and body of a boy or young man because we know that these changes are due to the action of the time factor. There's cause for fear for a person who does not know how time acts. Mukam harati vachalam pangam langhate girim yakipantamham vande siguram dinatavinam Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Everyone's afraid of time because time brings death, especially. But one man, Prabhupada was talking to one man, and the man was saying, I'm not afraid of death. So Prabhupada said, well, when you cross the street, do you cross on the red light? So that was Prabhupada's answer to that. No, everyone's afraid. This Prabhupada says everyone's afraid of time. Everyone is afraid. Time means change. We don't like change. We're eternal. We don't want to have that. We want to be eternally young. Inside we may feel like that. You know, the body is very old, but inside we feel young. And that's why these old ladies try to put all this makeup on and they're still, still trying to enjoy. So yes, yes, but we must embrace change, because change is time and time is Krishna. It's a form of Krishna, not a very lovable form of Krishna. So at the beginning of creation, the Lord glanced at Durga, and in his glance were three things: time, the jiva, means living entities, and our karma. The three things came out in that glance to Durga. He's breathing out at the beginning, and the first thing that comes out of his breath is personified Vedas. And the first thing they do is start singing prayers to him. And so I'm going to say one of the first prayer, personified Vedas, which comes later on in chapter 87. And we'll see, they kind of set the mood for creation of the Lord. Jaya 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 Cham Ajita Dasa Kipita Gunan Tam Asiyarat Mana Samavavura Samastapaga Akajagara Kasamakila Shakyavabodhakate Kacharajayat Mana Chacharata Nuchare Nikama. The Shruti said, "Victory to you, victory, O conquerable one. By your very nature, you are perfectly full in all opulences, and therefore please defeat the eternal power of illusion, who assumes control over the modes of nature to create difficulties for conditioned souls. O you, who awaken all the energies of the moving and non-moving body being, sometimes the Vedas can recognize you as you sport with your material and spiritual potency." So the Vedas, first thing, they're trying to wake up the Lord, and actually not only the Lord is waking up, but we're all waking up too with him. And why are we waking up? Because he wants us to come here and actually prepare ourselves to go back to the spiritual world. We didn't graduate last life, so now we got another chance to go back to Godhead. And that's the purpose of creation, out of compassion for the Lord. He wants us to enjoy with him. There's a very interesting verse in Purport, which is in the 5th chapter of this, no, not this canto. Well, I'm reading the 3rd canto, so it's what I'm reading. In the 3rd chapter, 3rd canto, 5th verse, verse 24, said the Lord, he was alone, but he was feeling lonely without his material energy. So Prabhupada said it's just like the husband feeling lonely in the absence of his wife, so he wakes her up to enjoy with him. And Krishna is waking us up to enjoy with him. Actually, we can't hear words suffering, but Prabhupada said that the whole process is to enliven the sleeping conditioned souls to the real life of spiritual consciousness, so they may become as perfect as the ever-liberated souls in Vaikuntha Loka. And then in 3rd canto, Prabhupada says something very amazing. He likes every part and parcel of his different potencies to take part in the blissful rasa, because participation with the Lord in his eternal rasa lila is the highest living condition. So there we go. That's the purpose of creation, to wake us up and go back to Godhead and join rasa lila, according to Srila Prabhupada. In the 3rd canto, 5th chapter. Very interesting purpose of creation. So time is Krishna's, it's indirect, as this verse says. And yes, there are different faces of time. Time shows itself to most people in this world as a very fearful thing. For the non-devotees, it's like at the time of death, it's a cat catching the rat in its mouth, and the rat is feeling terrified and shocked and doesn't know what's going to happen. Of course, for the devotees, it's different. For the non-devotees, it's the snake of time. And they die before they know it. And actually, it always is very inconvenient. You know, they have so many plans, but death comes. And they weren't expecting it, but it's always unexpected, isn't it? It's not a very expected thing. Of course, we should expect. We're here with this material body. So yes, time is like that. So 5,000 years ago, Yudhishthira was asked the question in Mahabharata, what is the news? So let's find out if the news is the same 5,000 years ago as it is now. So his answer was, the news is this world is like a gigantic frying pan. And actually the sun is the fire, days and nights are the fuel, months and seasons are the stirring ladle, and we are all being cooked by time. And some of us are well done, and some of us are completely fried by time at this point in our life. Old age, yes, old age is there. And Bhishma Dev, he was saying, oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It's irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhisthira, son of the demigod controlling religion, and in the presence of Bhima, the fighter with a club, and the bowman Arjuna, and above all the Lord, who is their friend? How could time influence them? They're the great devotees. Well, if time can influence them, so it can influence us too. So don't be surprised when it comes time for old age and disease and death. It will come. So why do devotees seem to suffer? Bhishma Dev, in that purport, Prabhupada says that first of all, it's the inexplicable wish of the Lord, and the Lord teaches the world by teaching the devotees. He shows the world, and the devotee doesn't need to learn anything new. It's all in his heart. Just like Gita, Arjuna already knew it. But it's for the less intelligent men. They see how do the devotees respond to these things, to these adverse reactions. So then Prabhupada says one sentence which is for us, a devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. There you go. So if anything difficult happens, it's Krishna's mercy. And we should not grudge Krishna. Don't be angry with Krishna because of it. He is behind it. So yes, this verse it says, how people are afraid of time. And Prabhupada said he did see the form of time during the war. In 1942, he said there was a siren. We ran to a shelter. The bombing began. And we were seeing the Vishwarupa. And I thought, well, of course, this is just another form of Krishna, but not a very lovable form. And he gave the example, if a father is a policeman and he comes home shooting, you might be afraid of him. And so, the Yudhisthira form is the shooting form of the Lord. All the flames are coming out and very, very fearful. And so, yes, and at the time of death in the hospital, they have a term called terminal restlessness. And that's when people start screaming and saying, don't touch me, let me go, untie me. Well, we know as devotees what's happening to these people. The Yamadutas are coming. They're showing their faces a little bit early. They're going to go take them. So yes. So how do the non-devotees, how do they see death? There was one lady, a famous lady. Her name was Krista Rodriguez, and she was a very rich lady and famous, but she died of stomach cancer at the age of 40. And she got a few realizations before she died. I have the world's most expensive car in my garage. Now I have to move in a wheelchair. My house sells all kinds of branded clothes, shoes, and valuables, but now my body is wrapped in a small cloth provided by the hospital. I have plenty of money in the bank, but now I benefit nothing from this amount. My house was like a castle, but now I'm sleeping on 2 beds in the hospital. From 5-star hotel to 5-star hotel. But right now I'm spending time in the hospital, moving from lab to lab. I've given hundreds of people signatures, but this time medical records are my signature. I had 7 barbers to do my hair, but now I don't have a hair on my head. Traveled in a private jet. I can fly anywhere, but now I need 2 aides to walk to the hospital door. Although there are a lot of food, now my diet is 2 tablets a day and a few drops of salt water at night. So she got this realization before she died. The house, the car, the plane, the bank, reputation, fame, none of this serves me. None of this will relax me. There is nothing real except death. And her realization, at the end of the day, it's all about health. Well, fortunate we're devotees. We have much more to look forward to than, just health. It's just health. I just saw a cartoon on the internet. There was a guy facing death. The death comes with a black coat and with a sickle, and he's saying, you mean all that special water, those exercises, the vegan diet, it didn't help? Death is still coming. No, you can't stop it. You can't stop it. So Alexander the Great, he actually conquered India for some time, and he also had a realization. At the time of just before he died, he told his generals, I have 3 requests. I want all the best doctors to carry my coffin to the cemetery. I want all my wealth to be strewn on the road on the way. I want my hands to be outside the coffin empty for all to see. So why did he say that? Because, I'll let you know in a minute. Even the best doctors can't save you from death. And you can't take any of the money with you. And you come empty-handed and you leave empty-handed. And so that's the problem with people who don't surrender to Krishna, non-devotees. They suffer so much. And so devotees is different, of course. Prahlad saw Krishna as time. Nishingadev saw Hiranyakashipu saw Shingadev as time. So for the devotee, death is like a kitten in the mouth of mother cat. The kitten feels secure. It knows, my mother's just taking me home. And and that's what the mother does. Sometimes the kittens, even during this life, before we die, we can feel the teeth of mother cat with disease and old age. And because sometimes we go the wrong direction. So then the mother takes the kitten and puts it in the right direction. Very interesting story I saw on the internet. The Titanic, on the Titanic, they took a cat for getting all the rats out. But before and one man was taking care of the cat. And before the ship sailed, the mother cat had 9 kittens. And then before the ship sailed, she took all those 9 kittens out of that boat onto the shore. And the man who was taking care of that cat thought, maybe she knows something. And he also left the boat. And the boat sank. So it's quite interesting. That's just a thought about the cat. Anyway, so we have to, Prahlad Maharaj says, I'm being crushed by time. So we do feel that, crushing by time, but we just have to remember, it's only Krishna, don't worry. It'll be all right. As long as we keep on doing service for Krishna and keep chanting Hare Krishna, we will be protected. And so Kunti Devi, she saw another face of time. She said in 1:828, My Lord, I consider your Lordship to be eternal time, supreme controller, without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one. So she saw time as witness. Time is in our heart also, actually, supersoul. And in the purport, Prabhupada said a very interesting thing, which you might not know, but Prabhupada said that time is an expansion of supersoul in our heart. Time is the witness of all our actions, good and bad. And so it's no use saying we don't know why and for what we're suffering. We may forget the misdeed we did, but Paramatma is our constant companion, and he knows past, present, and future. So time, Paramatma, expands as time. Isn't that another interesting point? And so devotees don't waste time. That's a symptom of ecstasy, of yarta kalatvam, symptom of bhava. And Bhagavatam says in 1st Canto, 5th chapter, verse 18, persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that thing which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest. Because happiness from sense enjoyment comes automatically, just like we get distress automatically. So better we go for Krishna consciousness or prema. Another point about time is that devotees are beyond time. Did you know that? There's a verse, 116.8, in the beginning of Bhagavatam. As long as Yamaraj, who causes everyone's death, is present here, no one shall meet with death. The great sages have invited the controller of death, Yamaraj, to come to Bhagavatam class. So maybe one of you, we don't know. Could be Yamaraj. Yes, Yamaraj is here. He likes katha. He likes to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why you should come to Bhagavatam class every day. And that's why you should read Srimad Bhagavatam too, because Yamaraj won't get you. So, devotees are beyond time. Yamaraj is a great devotee. He came as Vidura, and he protected the Pandavas from, the house of fire. And he tried to preach to Duryodhana, and Dhritarashtra with no success, because he's a great devotee. So, Yamaraj told his messengers, just bring those who aren't chanting Hare Krishna. Bring them here to me for judgment. So then Prabhupada was lecturing on that verse of Yamaraj in India in 1971 in Gorakhpur. And Prabhupada said, he quoted this verse, bring to anyone to me who is not chanting. And Prabhupada said, bring to me anyone who is not becoming a life member of ISKCON. They all became life members of ISKCON, everyone in that class. So if a pure devotee says something, watch out, it will come true. So yes, devotees are also dying, but it's not the same. It's not the same. But Prabhupada, he does warn us, don't leave Krishna consciousness and capture death again. Your death has been stopped as devotees, but don't fall down and again capture death. So in that purport of first canto, every human being dislikes meeting death, but he does not know how to get rid of death. The surest remedy for avoiding death is to hear nectarian pastimes of the Lord as narrated in Bhagavatam. So you can be free from death if you just keep hearing Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam in second canto, third chapter, verse 17. Ayurharati vaipunsam vidyanastanchayan asau tasyarta yakshanonita uttamasloka vartaya. Both by rising and setting, the sun increases duration of life of everyone, except one who uses the time discussing topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. And that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in his song, Udila Aruna. You spend your nights, he's quoting Lord Chaitanya. You spend your nights uselessly sleeping and daytime decorating your bodies. You receive this greatest gift of the human form, but you do not care for it. Not caring for the darling of Yashoda, you slowly fall through your last moments till death. With every rising and setting of the sun, a day passes and is lost. So why do you remain idle and not serve the Lord of the heart? So another important Bhagavatam verse, 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 12. This is spoken by Shukadev. The time factor enhances the sattva guna. So if you're in goodness, you're favored by time. Time will help you. Time will expand, or time can expand your life. Time can shorten your life. It's up to Krishna, because he's controlling. So there's a time for creation, and there's a time for maintenance, and there's a time for destruction. And so in the beginning of time, there was Brahma and the Prajapatis and the creation. And then in the middle, there's the demigods, devotional service to Vishnu, religion. And at the end, there's Lord Shiva and irreligion and the atheists full of anger. So we don't want to see that again. We want to go straight this time, back to Godhead. So Krishna comes as time, but not in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is beyond time. Just like there's only present, no past, no future. So Narada Muni, he experienced time in the spiritual world. He went to visit Krishna in 16,108 palaces, all of the queens. And so in a few minutes, because he could travel at the speed of the soul. And so he is really, so 16,000 palaces, in a few minutes he went. And the first palace, there was Rukmini. Krishna was on the bed, Rukmini was fanning. Krishna got off, put him on his throne, and Rukmini started fanning Narada. And then next palace he went, and Krishna was doing his morning duties, chanting mantras, meditating on himself, and giving in charity to the Brahmins. And the next palace he went, it was nighttime, and Krishna was preparing to go to sleep. And the next palace he went, it was noontime, he was having his lunch. And the next palace, it was afternoon, and he was swimming in the pools with his wife. So can you imagine a different time zone, 16,108 time zones? That's what it looked like, what was happening. It was a different time in every palace. So just, that will explode the computer of your mind if you put it in there. We have enough trouble with 24 time zones. And so spiritual time is completely different. And Prabhupada, he was an example of somebody being beyond time. Shudakirti said, I was 20 years old, and I couldn't have a difficult time keeping up with him as he traveled around the world. He was 75, going on morning walks. His disciples would look at each other, shake their heads, and wonder when he was going to go back to the temple, because they were getting tired. And I had that experience on a morning walk at Juhu Beach, Bombay. I was late. I ran to catch up. And he was talking with sannyasis. He stopped everything and acknowledged that I came there. Hare Krishna, who am I? Just one of thousands. But he had the time to see me and say something to me, acknowledge my presence. And then I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm 20-something, he's 70-something. How is he walking so fast? And I can't keep up. What's going on here? Couldn't figure it out, ever. No, it was beyond me. Couldn't figure out Prabhupada. And so one time, Shudakirti tells they were on an airplane and going to New York, a short flight, and all the devotees were in the same row as Prabhupada, and they were dive bombing. They were just falling asleep. And Prabhupada looked, he said, everyone is wide awake except for the devotees. They're in Maya, sleeping. Everyone else is awake. Why they cannot stay awake? And so Shudakirti said, I didn't want to argue with Prabhupada. I just waited till he stopped, because there's no such thing as a good reason with Prabhupada. I couldn't say, would they get up early in the morning, Mangalarti? So he said, I didn't try to argue. And Shudakirti said, one thing was certain, I didn't fall asleep on that flight. Devotees are beyond. But sometimes in the deity worshipping the deities, we think, like the deities need to know the time. There was Bhaktisiddhanta, not our godbrother, but one of our devotees, sannyasi, he went to have darshan of Prabhupada's childhood deities. And the pujari was addressing them. They put a watch on Krishna. Like Krishna needs to know the time. So no, he doesn't. So Prabhupada, he had a time for everything. Morning walk when the air was cool, neighborhood quiet. Best time to meet the deities at their time. To answer his letters, to preach, he had his time. And so one time, Prabhupada was in New York during book marathon. Well, they were always having a book marathon when Prabhupada was here. And so what the devotees did, they changed the Mangalarti time to 3:45 so they could get out earlier to distribute books. Prabhupada went, he had a look at the deities, he said, Krishna's not getting enough sleep. He's got to herd the cows. New York. In New York, where is he going to herd? I don't know, but that's what Prabhupada said. So they changed the time back to 4:30. And so it's quite interesting, concept of time, material and spiritual. So yes, it's very precious. We should not waste time. And that was Alexander the Great's realization that time is the most precious thing to him. Of course, we also say time is precious because we can use our time to serve Krishna. Don't waste our time. So I'd like to stop here. If there's any questions, comments, can you ask at this point? No. What? I covered everything. Oh, yeah, I try to put everything in the time, in the short time. I hope you could follow. Yes, you have a question. Here comes, wait, microphone.
In that section in the Bhagavatam where Bhishmadev is speaking, and he's lamenting or reflecting about, the Pandava suffering, it seems like the word, it's translated as time, but the word, that Sanskrit word is used as kāla. And when you read
kāla?
it, kāla,
Kāla,
K-A-L-A.
Yeah, that's the normal word for time.
Right, but I'm sure you're familiar with that section. And it seems like it's what's being spoken about there is something more than just tick-tock, passing of time. It's kind of like what's mixed in there is this idea of this concept of the inexplicable will of the Lord.
Yes.
So somehow, at least in that section of the Bhagavatam, there's some relationship between linear time, the physical, and the inexplicable will of the Lord. Maybe, I don't know, could you give some further insight into that?
Yeah, well, we have to go back to the previous chapter. That's chapter 9. We have to go back to chapter 8, at the end of the chapter, where Yudhishthira is lamenting. And at that particular time, no one could pacify him. Krishna couldn't pacify him. And the sages couldn't pacify him. So here comes the inexplicable wish of the Lord. Why couldn't Krishna pacify Salas Yudhishthira? He wanted to glorify Bhishma. So the inexplicable wish of the Lord means he wants to glorify his devotees. That's the wish. That's the inexplicable wish. And that's why Prabhupada said we should ungrudgingly suffer. Because there's something Krishna wants to teach through us. And that's the inexplicable wish of the Lord. We are here to teach the world. We are here to show people how to live in this world despite crazy time. Inexplicable wish of the Lord, or despite the effects of time. Yes, we can go back and see what was the wish of Krishna at that point. Why did all the Pandavas suffer? Because he wanted to show the world how did they respond to these difficulties. And then we can learn something. We can learn lessons. Okay, I'm a devotee, and I shouldn't, sometimes you think, well, I become a devotee, I'm not going to get sick anymore, or I'm not going to have problems. No, threefold miseries are there. Adibhautik, adidaivic, adi-atmic, and we do have them. But what happens, is you're not so affected. And you do see it differently. Prabhupada, he was very sick one time for 3 days. And actually, I witnessed that in Calcutta. I was a pujari. And they told me, don't blow the conch shell this morning. Mangalarti, Prabhupada was sick the whole night. And the picture was off in the Shingadev. They took off the altar and put it to Prabhupada. And he was sick for 3 days. And so I don't know if it was that particular time, but his servant, after he became better, the servant asked, do pure devotees suffer? And Srila Prabhupada said, no, it was the lover's bite. And so Krishna was the lover, and he got bitten by Krishna. And when I was in Calcutta, he was sick for 3 days, and then he flew to London, and he danced the whole way in Rath Yatra. And Shuddhakirti said, be careful, he was standing right behind him to catch him, because he could hardly walk, And then here he was, dancing in Rath Yatra in London, just right after he was very sick. So he was really beyond time. He was really beyond what was happening. He was not affected. His response was, lover's bite. And then he went on to dance. And Shuddhakirti was very worried. I'm going to stand right behind him and catch him in case he falls, And and the police were said, you got to stop him. And they tried to tell Prabhupada, didn't pay any attention. And so they gave up trying to stop him because he was holding up traffic in some places. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Yes, in the very back, I forgot your name.
Yeah, you mentioned about how the devotees were waking up the deities too early in New York. And I recall that letter Srila Prabhupada wrote. He said, you're waking up the deities at 3:30 in the morning. That Krishna was herding the cows all day long and he's very tired. But I just, on a practical point, how would we do that? Because we actually wake the deities at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, we do?
And we had to get the deities out of their beds and everything, and then we make the offering at 4 o'clock, and then we have Mangalarti at 4:30. So how would we practically...
Yeah, well, the thing is, I was a pujari too, in Calcutta. I would wake up the deities at 3:30. But if you're going to have Mangala Arati at 3:30, you got to wake up at 2:30. You got to do everything an hour before Mangala Arati. So that means 1 hour less sleep. 2:30 instead of 3:30 they wake up. And we used to sleep late. They used to sleep, we had to dress them after Shayan Arati in Calcutta. So like 10 o'clock I would finish. And I wouldn't sleep either, sleep from 10 to 2. And then time to wake up, time to put them to... It was like the whole day. Yeah. So yeah, it means 1 hour less sleep. You get up at 2:30. It's a big difference if you get up 2:30 or 3:30, right? Mm-hmm. That's a huge difference for us. 3:30 is doable. 2:30 is kind of stretching it. And I had to get up at 2:30 to wake them up. 10:30, 2:30. Yeah, anyway. So Prabhupada saw it, He could see Krishna tired. He thought Krishna was tired. Another time, His Holiness Sachinandan Swami tells a story. He was a new devotee, and his service was to wash Krishna's plates. But he was very disturbed. He just broke up with his girlfriend to become a devotee. His family was calling him back. His grandfather was dying. He was supposed to go and see his grandfather. So he wasn't doing a good job. And Prabhupada said, look at the deities, who's washing the deities' plates? They're not clean, And so, anyway, Prabhupada sees what's going on behind the scenes. Krishna talks to him. I think he talked to him, Prabhupada, here in L.A., right? Told him to go to India or something?
He said, Prabhupada said on a tape, he said, in Los Angeles, Dwarkadish wanted me to leave the West and go back to India. That's during his last days in 77. But he said, I can understand that it was for the good like that.
I see. In 77? I thought it was earlier.
Well, earlier, yeah. He was here.
He had to go preach in India. He was like.
Well, he was here in 76. I don't know what date, but last time he was here was 1976. Oh,
I see.
And he said that Dwarkadish told me he wanted me to leave.
Wow.
Like that.
Yeah, Hari, up here. Yes, one more question. Is there a time to end, 8:30 or?
But you seem to be going with like a literal interpretation, both of you, of that statement that Prabhupada made about Krishna looks tired, he needs some more sleep. But, how do we understand that? Because, even Prabhupada slept less than 4 hours, what to speak of the 6 Goswamis, and, Krishna's body is completely spiritual, he doesn't need any sleep, so how do you,
Well, I can give you another interpretation of that.
Okay.
Yeah, because what does Krishna do at night? Does he sleep?
Engaged in the rasa dance.
Yeah, maybe he needs more time with Radharani. His mother and father think he sleeps, but he doesn't sleep at night, really. Yes, and I do have stories about that with pujaris who have deities in the morning. They've got brambles in their clothes or whatever. They don't necessarily sleep. But Prabhupada has to tell it for our understanding. Yeah, and we can't be thinking, he's doing this Rasa Leela. We can't be thinking like that. But But if it's the spiritual world, then that's what he's doing. And, you know, it is Krishna's in the spiritual world, so we can't stop him from doing that. And here Prabhupada says we got to go all join the Rasa Leela, you know. Boy, third canto. Okay, so I'll stop here. All glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. 116.9. About Yamaraj being here? Oh, that was expansion from that one. That is 150, 150.